The twin suns hung low over the alien market, painting everything in a red-gold haze. Dust floated in the air, mixing with the smell of oil, sweat, and fear. The streets were alive with sound. Traders shouting, metal chains clinking, alien beasts roaring behind cages. It was not a place of kindness. It was a place where the strong ruled and the weak were sold. Among the crowd, a young alien girl stumbled forward. Her silver hair shimmered even under the dirt, but it was tangled in the thick hand of her master. He yanked her by that hair as if she were an animal. She fell to her knees, gasping in pain. The aliens around laughed, amused by her suffering. To them, she was nothing, just another piece of property to trade for food, credits, or pleasure. Her name was Lyra. Her wrists were bound with metal cuffs that hummed faintly with energy. Her once bright blue skin was marked with bruises. She didn't cry anymore. She had learned long ago that tears changed nothing. The slaver dragging her, a tall reptilian alien with cracked scales, barked at a merchant nearby, showing her off like a trophy. Strong enough to work, he said. Obedient enough to fear pain. Half price if you buy now. The merchant chuckled, inspecting Lyra as if she were a broken tool. Too thin, he hissed. She won't last long. The slaver yanked her hair again, making her face the crowd. Look at those eyes, he said proudly. Still bright. That's worth something. Lyra stared at the ground, wishing to disappear. Around her, no one looked twice. The crowd moved on. It was normal here. Cruelty was business. But then someone stopped. A human. He stood a few steps away, holding a small bag of metal parts in one hand. His clothes were simple. Dusty brown jacket, work gloves, boots worn from travel. His name was Eli. Most in the market avoided humans. They were seen as soft, emotional, and strange. But this one had calm eyes. Sharp, steady, almost dangerous in their silence. Eli watched the slaver pull Lyra's hair again, forcing her to stand. The crowd laughed louder this time. The sound echoed like mockery in his ears. He had seen many things in this galaxy. Wars, famine, greed. But something about this moment made his jaw tighten. He took a slow breath and stepped forward. Let her go, Eli said quietly. The laughter stopped. The market seemed to hold its breath. The slaver turned, staring at the human with disbelief. What did you say, off-worlder? Eli's voice stayed calm. I said, let her go. You've made your point. No need to hurt her. The slaver's lips curled into a cruel grin. You must be lost, human. This is not your world. Here she is mine to do as I please. I can see that, Eli replied, his tone even, but his eyes never left Lyra's trembling form. But you're still pulling a child by her hair like a beast. Doesn't take much strength to do that. The crowd started whispering. A human challenging a slaver? They hadn't seen that before. Some leaned closer, sensing a fight. Others laughed under their breath. The fool was about to die. Lyra lifted her head just a little. Her eyes met Eli's for the first time. They were full of fear, but behind the fear was something else. Confusion. No one had ever spoken for her before. Not one soul. The slaver stepped forward, towering over the human. His tail flicked with irritation. You think you can tell me what to do, soft skin? Do you even know what she is? She's someone being hurt, Eli said simply. A low growl rolled from the slaver's throat. He raised his whip, a long strip of glowing metal wire. The crowd murmured, forming a loose circle around them. Bets were whispered. The air grew heavier. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to scream, to tell the human to run, but no sound came out. She was frozen. The whip cracked across the ground near Eli's boots, sizzling sparks. The slaver sneered. Last chance, human. Walk away. Eli didn't move. His hand twitched, not from fear, but from restraint. He had been in fights before, but not like this, and not for someone else's freedom. Still, he didn't step back. The slaver smirked. Fine then. Let's show you what happens to heroes. He swung the whip. The glowing wire sliced through the air toward Eli's face, but Eli shifted, catching a piece of metal pipe from the ground. The whip struck it, sparks flying in all directions. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The human had blocked it. Eli's expression didn't change. You hit me again, he said, voice low, and I'll make sure you drop that whip. The slaver hissed, furious now. You dare, he didn't finish. Eli moved faster than anyone expected. He swung the pipe, striking the slaver's arm. The whip fell to the ground with a clang. The crowd shouted, part in shock, part in excitement. Lyra stood frozen, eyes wide. She had never seen anyone fight for her. Never seen anyone face a slaver and win even a moment. The slaver clutched his injured arm, snarling, "You'll pay for that, human." Eli stepped closer, standing between the alien girl and the slaver. "Maybe," he said quietly. "But not today." The two locked eyes, one burning with rage, the other calm as stone, and in that moment, as dust swirled and silence spread through the market, one truth became clear to all who watched. For the first time in that cruel place, someone had stood up, a human. The market had gone silent after the strike. Dust hung in the air, glowing red under the twin suns. The whip lay motionless on the ground, and every eye was locked on the human who dared to defy an alien slaver. Eli didn't speak. His stance was steady, his grip firm on the metal pipe. He could feel the heat of the suns on his back, the heavy stares pressing in. Around him, alien traders murmured in disbelief. No one interfered when a slaver worked. No one but this strange human with calm eyes and a quiet fire inside. The reptilian slaver's arm twitched, still stinging from the blow. His scaled face twisted with hate. "You made a mistake, human," he hissed. "No one challenges a master in this market." Eli's voice was soft but carried like thunder. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Lyra, still kneeling, looked up at him. Her silver hair fell across her bruised face. She had no words. No one had ever spoken that way for her. Her people had been slaves for generations, too weak to fight, too few to matter. Yet here stood a man who didn't even belong to her kind, facing death for her sake. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some whispered bets, others smirked, waiting for the human to be torn apart. But a few just watched in silence, as if something new, something dangerous was waking in the air. The slaver lunged forward, swinging his heavy fist. Eli sidestepped, the punch brushing his shoulder. He struck back with the metal pipe, quick, precise, aiming for the slaver's ribs. A solid thud. The alien staggered, growling in pain. The sound of the impact echoed across the market stalls. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eli didn't smile. He didn't enjoy fighting, but his eyes burned with something deeper than anger. It was purpose. "You think this will change anything?" The slaver spat, clutching his side. "She's one of them. A lesser breed. You humans, always pretending to be saviors." Eli stepped closer, his shadow falling over Lyra. "Maybe we just remember what being human means," he said quietly. "Something you seem to have forgotten." The slaver roared and charged again. His tail lashed through the air, hitting a nearby stall. Fruit and metal parts scattered everywhere. The crowd backed away, forming a circle. The market had become an arena. Eli swung the pipe again, blocking another blow. The slaver was stronger, heavier, but slower. Eli moved with the precision of a man who'd spent his life fixing things. Machines, engines, broken scraps. He read movements like gears turning. When the slaver lunged, Eli struck his knee. The alien fell to one leg, snarling in pain. The crowd erupted with shouts, some cheering, others calling for blood. Lyra pressed her bound hands to her chest, whispering, "Stop. Please stop." But her voice was swallowed by the noise. The slaver's anger burned hotter. He drew a small blaster from his belt. The metal glinted in the sunlight. The market fell into silence again. "Enough games," the alien hissed. "You die now, human," Lyra gasped. Eli froze, his eyes narrowing. The gun pointed straight at his heart. Time slowed. He could hear the hum of the weapon charging. The crowd stepped back even farther, not wanting to be caught in the blast. But as the slaver's finger tightened on the trigger, a faint glow appeared beside him. Lyra's cuffs sparked. For the first time, the embedded energy field flickered and failed. The shockwave of the fight had loosened them. Her chains dropped to the dirt with a dull clink. The slaver turned his head just slightly. Enough. Eli moved. He grabbed a piece of fallen metal from the stall and threw it. It hit the alien's arm hard, knocking the blaster from his grip. The weapon fired wildly into the sky. A streak of plasma cracked through the clouds. Before the slaver could react, Eli charged forward and slammed the pipe into his chest. The alien stumbled back, hit a post, and fell to the ground, gasping for air. The crowd exploded, chaos shouting disbelief. Eli stood over the slaver, chest heaving. "You're done," he said quietly. The slaver coughed, spitting dark blood. "You don't understand, human. You've doomed yourself. You'll never leave this place alive." Eli bent down, his expression calm again. "Maybe not. But she will." He reached for Lyra's wrist and broke the last bit of metal with the pipe. She stared at him, still shaking. The weight of her chains gone felt unreal. "Can you walk?" Eli asked. Lyra nodded slowly, her voice soft. "Why? Why did you help me?" "Because no one else would," he said. Behind them, the slaver groaned, struggling to rise. The crowd parted again as Eli guided Lyra toward the edge of the market. He could feel the eyes of hundreds following them, some angry, some in awe, some afraid. Whispers began to spread. A human fought a slaver. He freed her. He'll be hunted. But Eli didn't look back. Lyra's steps were unsteady, but she followed. For the first time in years, she wasn't being pulled. She was being led. The suns burned lower, painting long shadows over the dust. Somewhere behind them, the slaver's voice echoed weakly. "This isn't over, human. No one defies the chain and lives." Eli glanced over his shoulder once, his eyes cold as steel. "Then let's see how long the chain really is." He turned away, guiding Lyra into the narrow alleys beyond the market. The sound of the crowd faded behind them, and in that silence, something began. A story whispered in every corner of the market. A human stood up. The streets behind the market were narrow and filled with smoke from cooking stalls and leaking exhaust vents. The noise of the crowd faded as Eli and Lyra slipped through the shadows. He led her through broken alleys where flickering lights buzzed and strange smells mixed in the air. Every step away from the market felt like walking deeper into danger. Lyra kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting the slaver to appear. "They will come," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He will not let this go." Eli nodded without looking back. "I know," he said. "But we keep moving." His arm still burned from the whip's strike. A line of blood ran down his sleeve, but he ignored it. Lyra noticed guilt rising in her chest. No one had ever been hurt because of her before. They turned into a narrow passage that led to a small square filled with rusted machines and broken air vents. "We'll rest here," Eli said quietly. He sat against a wall, breathing hard. Lyra knelt beside him, hands shaking as she tried to clean the wound with a torn piece of cloth. "You should not have helped me," she said softly. "Humans are not welcome here. Now you are marked." Eli gave a faint smile. "Then we're both outcasts. Guess we'll fit right in." For a moment, the silence between them was peaceful. Lyra studied him, his calm eyes, his tired face, the strange softness in his voice. Humans were said to be violent, greedy, and dangerous, yet this one had shown more kindness than anyone she had known. Before she could speak again, a deep voice echoed from the mouth of the alley. "There they are." Eli's head snapped up. Shadows moved in the dim light, 4 figures stepping forward. The slaver's enforcers. Their armor glowed faintly under the neon lamps. The largest one, a scarred alien with a metal jaw, grinned. "The master wants his property back," he said, pointing at Lyra, "and he'll take your head as payment, human." Eli stood, pipe in hand. "Tell your master to come himself," the metal-jawed alien laughed. "Oh, he will. But first we'll break you." They rushed forward. Eli met the first blow, ducking under a heavy swing. His pipe cracked against armor, sparks flying. Lyra screamed as another alien grabbed her arm. She kicked and twisted, her chains clanging. The sound of metal against stone echoed through the square. Eli slammed his attacker against the wall, grabbing the fallen whip from the ground. With a single motion, he struck, wrapping the glowing cord around another alien's arm and yanking hard. The creature howled, electricity crackling through its armor. "Run, Lyra," Eli shouted, but she didn't run. Not this time. Something changed inside her. A spark. A pulse of energy she hadn't felt since before she was captured. Her body glowed faintly with a blue aura. The alien holding her stumbled back, hissing. "Stop fighting, slave!" he barked. Lyra raised her hand. Light burst from her palm, sending him flying into a wall. The air rippled with energy. For a moment, everyone froze, even Eli. Lyra stared at her own hand, terrified. "I didn't mean to— Oh, don't stop now!" Eli shouted, turning just as another enforcer charged. Together they fought, human and alien, side by side. Eli struck with his pipe and whip, each move sharp and fast. Lyra's energy flared again, glowing brighter with every breath. She deflected a blast shot, the energy scattering like broken glass. In less than a minute, 3 enforcers were down, groaning in the dirt. The last one backed away slowly, fear replacing arrogance. "You'll pay for this," he hissed, limping away into the dark. Eli dropped the pipe, his chest heaving. The smell of burned metal filled the air. Lyra's glow faded as she fell to her knees, exhausted. He knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. You okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. You shouldn't have stayed. They will bring more. Eli gave a tired chuckle. They always bring more. For a while, neither spoke. The square was silent except for the hum of broken lights and the distant noise of the city. Finally, Lyra whispered, Why do you care so much? You don't even know me. Eli looked at her, his voice low but steady. I don't need to know you to know what's right. No one deserves to be treated like a thing. Her eyes filled with tears, something between hope and disbelief flickering in them. You risked everything, she said. Eli smiled faintly. That's what makes it worth something. He helped her to her feet. The night wind blew through the alley, carrying the smell of smoke and danger. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to echo. The slavers' men were regrouping. Eli looked up at the dark sky. We can't stay here. Come on. Lyra followed, clutching the edge of his jacket as they disappeared into the misty streets. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a slave. She felt alive. Behind them, the bodies of the enforcers lay scattered, proof that something had changed. The whispers would spread again, stronger than before. A human stood up, and the galaxy was starting to notice. The night had settled over the city, casting long shadows between the towers of metal and smoke. The rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, washing the blood, the dust, and the heat from the day away. Eli led Lyra through the maze of alleys until they reached the edge of the lower district, where machines whispered and neon lights flickered in the puddles. His small workshop stood there, half hidden behind stacks of broken engines and scrap. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Warm light spilled out from inside, revealing a cluttered space filled with tools, wires, and half-finished repairs. It was home, but barely. Lyra stepped inside, shivering. The cold rain had soaked her clothes, and she hugged herself tightly. Eli closed the door and locked it. He tossed his wet jacket aside and grabbed a small towel. Here, he said, handing it to her. She took it slowly, her hands trembling. Why are you helping me? She asked again, her voice quiet but firm this time. You could have left me. You could have walked away. Eli rubbed his arm where the whip had burned through his skin. I've seen too much of what happens when people walk away, he said simply. Lyra sat on a workbench, her eyes scanning the strange tools around her. You fix machines, she said. I fix what's broken, he replied. Sometimes machines, sometimes people. She looked at him for a long moment, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light. You can't fix me, she whispered. They took everything from me. My freedom, my family, my strength. I'm not even sure who I am anymore. Eli crouched down in front of her. They didn't take everything, he said. You're still here. Lyra lowered her gaze. His words were simple, but they struck deep. For years she had been told she was worthless, that her kind existed only to serve. But this human, this stranger, looked at her as if she still mattered. Outside, thunder rolled. Eli turned back to his tools, trying to distract himself. We'll stay low for a while, he said. They'll be looking for us. Especially you. They'll be looking for you too, Lyra said quietly. The slaver won't forget. He'll send hunters. Eli nodded. He already has. I just have to stay one step ahead. She frowned. Why risk everything? You could have sold me back, taken the reward. Eli's jaw tightened. Because I'm not like them. The silence stretched between them again. Lyra stared at the floor, her bare feet leaving small wet prints on the cold metal. She wanted to believe him, but fear still lingered. Not of him, but of hope itself. Hope had always been dangerous. A sudden noise outside made both of them turn. A faint scraping. Movement. Eli motioned for silence. He moved to the door and peered through a narrow slit in the metal. Shadows moved beyond the rain. The glow of scanners swept across the street. Bounty hunters, he cursed under his breath. They're faster than I thought. Lyra stood quickly. We should run. Eli shook his head. No, running now will get us killed. We hide. He pulled open a floor panel near the corner of the workshop, revealing a small maintenance pit beneath. It smelled of oil and rust, but it was deep enough to keep them out of sight. Get in, he whispered. Lyra hesitated. What about you? I'll be right behind you. She slid down first, her hands clutching the edges. Eli followed, closing the hatch just as heavy boots entered the workshop above them. The sound of footsteps echoed through the room. Voices, low, guttural, spoke in a language Lyra didn't understand. Eli held his breath, every muscle tense. He could see dust falling from the ceiling with each step they took above. One of the hunters kicked something over. Another muttered, "No one's here. Maybe the trackers are off." "Or maybe he's smarter than we thought," another voice replied. "Find the girl. The slaver wants her alive." Lyra's heart pounded. She covered her mouth, trying to stay silent. Eli glanced at her and pressed a finger to his lips. His calm eyes kept her steady even as fear threatened to swallow her. Minutes crawled by. Finally, the sound of boots faded. A door slammed. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Eli waited another moment before lifting the hatch and climbing out. He checked the windows and clear. Then he helped Lyra out of the pit. She exhaled shakily. "You risked your life again." He smiled faintly. "Guess I'm getting used to it." She stared at him, searching his face. "You could have let them find me," she said. "It would have been easier." Eli leaned against his workbench, tired but steady. "Maybe," he said. "But then I'd have to live with it. And that's harder." Lyra walked closer, the flicker of the light painting her face with gold. "Humans," she whispered. "You're strange creatures." "Yeah," Eli said, chuckling softly. "That's what they keep telling us." She smiled, a small, uncertain smile, but it was real. Outside, the rain began to ease. The lights of the city dimmed beneath the clouds. In that quiet, two souls, one human, one alien, sat in a small, broken workshop bound not by fear or chains, but by something stronger, and somewhere beyond the storm. The word was spreading again. A human stood up and he wasn't done yet. The morning came quietly but not peacefully. The sky above the city was pale gray, hiding the suns behind thick smoke. The storm had passed, yet the air still smelled of rain and metal. Inside the small workshop, Eli was already awake, fixing the torn circuits of a small drone while Lyra slept on a folded blanket in the corner. He hadn't slept at all. The night's silence had been too thin, the kind that comes before danger. Every few minutes he glanced toward the door, listening for footsteps. When Lyra finally stirred, she blinked at the dim light. "You didn't rest," she said softly. Eli shook his head. "Couldn't. They'll come sooner or later." She hugged her knees, her silver hair falling across her face. "You saved me again. And now you're trapped with me." "I'm not trapped," Eli said, checking the drone's lens. "Just not leaving." Lyra looked around the room, noticing the pieces of machines, the burnt marks on the wall, and the human's tired eyes. "You've been alone for a long time," she said. Eli didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was truth enough. But their quiet moment didn't last. A sharp ping echoed from one of Eli's scanners. He froze. A red light blinked on the small screen beside the window. It wasn't the rain this time, it was movement. "They've found us," he whispered. Lyra's breath caught. "How?" "Trackers," Eli said, grabbing a small pulse gun from the table. "They're sweeping the district." Before she could speak again, the sound of engines filled the air, low and heavy like thunder. Outside, black hovercrafts moved through the mist, their searchlights slicing through the narrow streets. Lyra stood, trembling. "They won't stop until they have me." Eli looked at her, his jaw set. "Then we make it hard for them." He moved to the door, checking the charge on his weapon. The last time he'd fought, it was for her freedom. This time it might be for both of their lives. Suddenly, a blast hit the outer wall. The metal shook, dust raining from the ceiling. Lyra stumbled back in fear. "They're here," Eli said grimly. "Stay low." The door blew open. Smoke poured in, followed by armored figures. The slavers' hunters, 6 of them, tall, armed, and ready. Their helmets glowed red in the haze. The leader stepped forward. "By order of the Market Guild, surrender the escaped property," he said coldly. "Do so and your death will be quick." Eli didn't move. "You'll have to take her over my body." The alien tilted his head. "That can be arranged." The fight began. Blaster fire lit the room, burning through shelves and engines. Eli ducked behind a workbench, returning fire with sharp, quick bursts. Sparks flew, filling the workshop with flashes of blue light. Lyra crouched behind him, hands over her ears, the noise deafening. Eli's gun clicked empty. "Damn," he muttered, diving for cover. One of the hunters advanced, firing again. The beam hit the wall, exploding a row of fuel cells. The blast threw both Eli and Lyra to the floor. "Eli!" she cried, crawling toward him. He coughed, smoke filling his lungs, and motioned for her to stay down. The hunters closed in. The leader lifted his weapon, ready to end it, and then it happened. The same blue glow returned, but brighter this time. It spread from Lyra's hands to her whole body, wrapping her in light. The air trembled, humming with power. Her fear turned into something else. Instinct. She stood up slowly, her silver hair floating as if caught in a wind that only she could feel. "Leave him," she said, her voice calm, yet echoing like thunder. The hunters hesitated. The leader laughed. "You think you can scare me, slave?" Lyra raised her hand. A wave of light burst from her palm, slamming into the wall. The impact sent the hunters flying backward like dolls, crashing into crates and metal beams. The entire workshop shook. Eli shielded his face from the light. When it faded, the hunters were motionless, their armor scorched. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. The glow faded from her skin, leaving only faint sparks that faded in the air. Eli crawled to her side, pulling her close. "Lyra, what was that?" "I don't know," she said weakly. "My people used to have power, before they were enslaved. I thought it was gone." He looked at her, eyes filled with awe. "It's not gone. You just needed a reason to find it." Outside, sirens wailed. More ships were coming. Eli helped her stand. "We can't stay here. This place is done." He grabbed a small pack from the shelf, slinging it over his shoulder. "There's an old freight tunnel below the district. We can use it to get out of the city." Lyra nodded, though her legs trembled. "I'll follow you." As they stepped into the rain again, the burning workshop glowed behind them, sparks climbing into the smoky sky. The hunters lay defeated, their metal armor reflecting the firelight. The story of that night would spread faster than the flames. Whispers of a human who fought the slavers, and an alien girl who shone like a star. Together they vanished into the darkness, while the city above began to tremble under a single truth. Human mercy had found its power, and the galaxy would never be the same. The tunnels beneath the city were dark and endless. Pipes hissed with steam and old lights flickered like dying stars. Eli and Lyra moved carefully through the shadows, the sound of dripping water echoing off the metal walls. Behind them, the world above burned. His workshop, his home, everything he had built. Eli's jaw was tight. He didn't look back. Lyra followed close, her steps light but unsteady. She could feel the pain in every breath he took. His arm was still bleeding from the earlier fight, but he never complained. He just kept walking, guiding her through the maze. After a long silence, Lyra finally spoke. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "You lost your home because of me." Eli stopped. He turned, his face half lit by a flickering lamp. "Home isn't walls and tools," he said. "It's what you protect." "That's what matters." His words hit her harder than any weapon. She lowered her eyes, feeling something she hadn't in years. Guilt mixed with gratitude. But before either could speak again, a faint vibration rippled through the ground. Then another. A deep rumble grew in the distance, the unmistakable sound of engines. Eli's expression darkened. "They're tracking us," Lyra frowned. "How?" "I broke the cuffs," he shook his head. "They don't need the cuffs. They can follow energy signatures, and after that display back there, you're glowing on every scanner in the city." Lyra's chest tightened. "Then we can't hide." "No," Eli said, checking his weapon. "We fight." They reached a large chamber at the end of the tunnel, an abandoned freight room filled with scrap, rusted metal crates, and broken hover platforms. Old fuel cells lined the walls. The air smelled of ozone and decay. Eli looked around quickly. "This will have to do." He began setting traps, connecting old wires, reactivating drones, wiring fuel tanks with power cells. His hands moved fast, steady, precise. Lyra watched, fascinated. He wasn't a soldier, but there was something about the way he worked. Every move purposeful, every motion driven by survival. "You've done this before?" she said quietly. Eli nodded once. "War leaves lessons. Some of us never stop learning them." The engines grew louder. Blue lights flickered through the tunnels. Voices shouted in the distance. Lyra's pulse quickened. "There are too many." Eli handed her a small detonator. "You see that switch? If I say now, you press it." She stared at the device, then at him. "That will kill them." "It'll save us," Eli said. His tone was calm, but his eyes were tired. The kind of tired that comes from too many battles, too many losses. The first blast door at the end of the tunnel burst open. Hunters stormed in, weapons glowing. Eli took cover behind a crate and fired. Blaster shots lit the chamber in blue and red bursts. The noise was deafening. Sparks showered from the ceiling. Lyra crouched behind a metal panel, her heart pounding. Every flash of light showed Eli, moving, ducking, firing, and never hesitating. He looked more like a man made of iron than flesh. A plasma bolt hit near her, the shockwave throwing her back. Pain seared across her side. She gasped, clutching her ribs. Eli turned, panic flashing across his face. "Lyra, I'm fine," she lied, pushing herself up. He gritted his teeth and fired again, hitting one of the hunters square in the chest. The alien fell, armor sparking, but more poured in, dozens of them. "We're surrounded." Lyra shouted. "Not yet," Eli said. "Wait for it." The lead hunter raised a cannon. "You can't win, human." Eli smirked, even as blood ran down his arm. "Maybe not. But I can make sure you don't either," he shouted. "Now!" Lyra slammed her thumb on the detonator. The world exploded. A massive blast ripped through the chamber, turning fuel cells into fireballs. The shockwave threw the hunters off their feet. Fire climbed up the walls, consuming everything. Heat burned the air. Eli grabbed Lyra, shielding her with his body as debris rained down. The flames roared like thunder. When the noise finally faded, everything was smoke and silence. The chamber was in ruins. Pieces of metal burned red hot. The tunnel ceiling had half collapsed. Eli coughed, his voice rough. "You still alive?" Lyra nodded weakly. "I think so." He helped her up, his own legs barely holding. The fire painted his face in orange light, sweat, ash, and determination. "Eli," she whispered, staring at the flames. "Why do you keep fighting for me?" He looked at her, his expression soft. "Because someone should. Because you remind me what being human means." Her eyes shimmered, reflecting the fire. "And what's that?" He smiled faintly. "It means standing up when no one else will." They started walking again, leaving the burning chamber behind. The fire spread through the tunnels, sealing their path forever. Above them, the city lights flickered as power lines ruptured from the blast. They didn't look back. Behind them lay destruction. Ahead of them, a faint glow. The light of dawn filtering through a distant exit, and as they stepped toward it, bruised, bleeding, but still alive, one truth followed them through the smoke and silence. A single act of mercy had started a war. The dawn broke slowly over the desert plains beyond the ruined city. The twin suns rose from behind the black towers, their light soft and golden through the drifting smoke. A battered hovercraft glided across the sand, its engine humming weakly, leaving a lonely trail behind. Eli sat at the controls, one hand wrapped in a torn bandage, the other steady on the throttle. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the desert met the sky. Every now and then he coughed from the dust that filled the air, but he said nothing. Lyra sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket she had found in the craft's storage. The soft wind tangled her silver hair. Her gaze stayed on him, on the quiet man who had lost everything and still chose to protect her. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm, like the space between heartbeats. After a long time, Lyra spoke. "You should rest," she said. "You're hurt," Eli gave a small smile. "I'll rest when we're safe." "Where is safe for us now?" she asked softly. He didn't answer right away. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, dunes glowing under the sunlight. "There's an old station in the outer sectors," he finally said. "Abandoned for years. We can hide there until things cool down." Lyra looked down, her fingers brushing the edge of the blanket. "You don't have to keep protecting me. You've already done enough." Eli turned to her, his tone gentle but firm. "You still don't get it, do you? It's not about what I have to do. Then what is it about?" He looked back at the horizon. "It's about what's right." The words were simple, but something in the way he said them made her chest ache. For years she had believed the galaxy was nothing but cruelty and power, that kindness was weakness. But this human, broken and tired, made her believe in something different. By midday, the hovercraft sputtered and died near a canyon ridge. Eli checked the controls, fuel cells gone, power lines melted. "We'll have to walk," he said. Lyra helped him up. The heat pressed down on them as they crossed the sand, step by step. Each mile stretched like forever. Eli's steps grew slower. His wound had reopened, blood dark against his shirt. "Stop," Lyra said finally. "You can't keep walking like this." "I can manage." "No, you can't." She took his arm, forcing him to sit under the shade of a rock formation. The suns burned high above and sweat glistened on his face. She tore a strip from her blanket and pressed it to his wound. "You humans," she whispered, her hands trembling. "You fight even when you shouldn't." Eli smiled faintly. "Guess it's what we do best." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, at the lines of exhaustion, at the warmth in his eyes even through the pain. Something inside her stirred, something soft and unfamiliar. "When I was in chains," she said, "I used to look at the stars and wonder if anyone out there would ever care. I stopped believing in that long ago. And now?" he asked. She hesitated. "Now? I think maybe I was wrong." The wind picked up, carrying grains of sand that shimmered in the light. For a while they just sat there, two survivors in a vast world silent beneath the rising suns. By evening they reached the ridge. From there the desert opened into a valley filled with ruins, old transport pods, the remains of forgotten wars. The silence of it felt sacred. Eli stared at the scene and breathed deeply. "We'll rest here tonight," Lyra nodded. She helped him lie down on a soft patch of sand, then sat beside him, staring at the stars beginning to appear. One by one they came out, bright and endless, stretching across the sky like rivers of light. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Eli smiled weakly. "They always are if you stop long enough to look." Lyra turned toward him. "When I was captured, I promised myself that if I ever saw the stars again without chains, I'd remember it. I'd remember what freedom felt like." He closed his eyes, his voice soft. "Then remember this moment. Because you're free now, Lyra." She felt tears burn her eyes. "And what about you?" Eli opened his eyes again, staring at the stars. "Me, I'll keep going. There's always someone who needs help. Always something worth standing for." Lyra leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. "You're not like the others." He chuckled weakly. "Neither are you." The wind grew gentler as the night deepened. Above them the stars shimmered brighter, reflecting in her silver eyes. Eli's breathing slowed, calm but tired. "If they ask about what happened," he murmured, "tell them the truth." "What truth?" she asked. He looked at her, his voice soft as the wind. "That a human stood up when no one else would." Lyra's throat tightened. "I'll tell them," she said. "I'll make sure they remember." He smiled just a little, then leaned back, his eyes closing as the stars glowed brighter above. Lyra sat beside him in silence, watching the heavens stretch across the endless night. The galaxy was vast, full of cruelty and fire, but also now a spark of hope. She looked up and whispered to the stars, her voice carried by the wind. The human stood up. "And I will never forget." And far above, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if they too remembered.